The process of reporting on early childhood outcomes in Missouri began as a pilot program with 8 school districts in 2006 and has remained a federal reporting requirement for any school district providing early childhood special education services to children. This series of 7 modules is designed to give professionals working in early childhood special education an understanding of the early childhood outcomes process. Each module is designed to be approximately 20 minutes long, making it possible to do one at a time or all of them in a half a day. Participants are encouraged to start and stop these modules at any time in order to have discussions with other participants or to make notes on something you've seen or heard. The companion documents mentioned throughout this series are available on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website on the Office of Childhood page. The link to the documents is provided at the end of this module. The objectives of the 7-module series include providing districts with an understanding of why outcome data is collected, defining the 3 outcome areas, providing districts with an understanding of the differences between discrete skills and looking at those skills from the lens of functional abilities, identifying the 3 sources of information that should be used to collect ECHO information, providing districts with an understanding of the process for collecting information, determining a rating, and reporting that rating, providing districts with an understanding of how to use their outcomes data for program improvement. Any single module may address several of these concepts. The series is designed for learners to engage with all 7 modules. In modules 1 and 2, we explored the background for rating early childhood outcomes and learned the behaviors and skills each of the 3 outcome areas represent. For Module 3, we will begin to learn more about the early childhood outcomes process and how it was developed to reflect the content of the 3 outcome areas. This process was designed to provide a systematic and consistent method for teams to summarize information from multiple sources about a child's functioning in each of those outcome areas. In this module, participants will gain understanding of the following objectives: the key features of an outcomes rating process, sources of ECHO data, when ECHO ratings are required, and knowledge of what the ECHO process is and what it is not. The visual in this slide depicts the basic steps to completing the early childhood outcomes process. Ratings are required for all students receiving ECSE services, from those with mild needs to those with the most significant needs. If they have an IEP, entry and exit ratings are required. The first steps in this process, gathering data from multiple sources, will be highlighted in this module, Module 3. Using a consistent team process, which will involve families and other professionals to discuss this data, will be featured in Module 4. It is through these discussions that the information gathered will be synthesized through a process called age anchoring, which requires the team to compare the child's skills and behaviors to those expected for a child of his or her age. Age anchoring will be explored in Module 5. The last step in the rating process involves making a rating based on specific criteria on a 5-point scale at least 2 times for students involved in early childhood special education program. The 5-point scale and the criteria will be explored in Module 6. Pause here to reflect on the ECHO process in your setting. Are you including all 4 of the features noted on this slide? If so, is there evidence of such? Is this process consistent across all sites and classrooms within your district? What key features do you see that might need to be further developed in your setting? The early childhood outcomes process requires programs to gather information about a child from multiple sources, including assessment results, family input, and professional observations across a variety of settings to determine ratings. We will explore each of these sources of data for ECHO ratings individually. Assessment data are an important source of information to understand children's functioning and inform ECHO ratings. However, there are no assessment instruments that measure the 3 child outcomes directly. Many assessments at the early childhood level are domain-based and were not designed to provide information about functional behaviors, particularly across a variety of situations. Assessments help practitioners gather valuable information about a child's functioning, but the score alone from a specific tool does not fully capture key information for ECHO ratings. Scores on assessments need to be looked at with caution when using them as a piece of information in determining outcome ratings. A high score on a set of domain-specific items might not mean the child has achieved a particular outcome, and conversely, a low score might not mean the child has not achieved it. Assessment results should be used in conjunction with other information about the child from the multiple sources noted on the previous slide to help develop a full picture of how the child uses skills in the outcome area to accomplish meaningful tasks. Some assessments will be more useful than others. Assessments that focus on the child's ability to use various skills in meaningful ways are more useful than those which focus on discrete skills in isolation. While teacher-created assessments can yield good information about what children are doing every day, it is also important to note that it is best to make decisions based on established assessment tools that have been validated. Assessment, in its broadest sense, is a process of gathering information. Using assessments in early childhood setting is an important part of the Division of Early Childhood's recommendations for quality practices in early childhood education. Multiple data sources and measures should be used to provide the most complete and accurate picture of the child's current functioning when determining ratings on the three outcomes. That same information gathering is essential to facilitate good discussion about the child's current functioning and for the IEP team to plan effective services during the IEP process. If you are using specific assessment tools when developing IEPs or as benchmarking progress monitoring measures in your programs, keep in mind that ECHO ratings are not based on the scores received on one specific tool. We will look at why this is a caution on the next slide. While we are all aware that the word assessment does not necessarily equate to a formal test, we do use these formal tools that we call assessments in our early childhood special education world, and there are some cautions to be aware of when looking at the data we glean from those tools. It was mentioned before, but worth highlighting again, that most tests are typically organized around one or more of 5 domains, which include social, emotional, physical, cognitive, and language. On most of those assessments, children are asked to demonstrate a skill in only one way. Many tools don't allow for demonstrating skills in different ways or with a variance from typical. They also attempt to measure a child's ability under ideal circumstances rather than in typical setting or situation that makes up a child's day. Those tools are developed through a particular lens or framework which puts a large emphasis on the particular domain the assessment is targeting. Again, making decisions about children's functional abilities with age-appropriate skills is not based on one number on an assessment of any kind. Using the information from those assessments is appropriate, but we have to make the connection between those discrete skills and the way children use them in everyday activities in order to accurately reflect what's happening in each of the outcome areas. Content from many different domains and curricular areas is integrated in the 3 child outcomes. For example, the child who interacts with a peer and uses various materials in the kitchen or block center to imitate actions he or she has seen an adult perform is using discrete skills, which are assessed on various instruments in a functional way. Those functional skills just mentioned would be examples of a child demonstrating abilities in Outcome 1, demonstrating positive social-emotional skills in Outcome 2, acquiring and using knowledge and skills. Practitioners need to become comfortable thinking about how information on the assessment tools they use relates to the 3 outcome areas. A crosswalk is a tool that shows how items on assessments relate to each of the 3 outcome areas. Here is an example of a crosswalk of the DRDP with each column representing an outcome and the items from the assessment listed under each area. Using a crosswalk, if one is available, will be helpful in using assessment results as one of the information sources to determine a child's performance related to each of the outcome areas. For some of the more widely used assessment tools, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center has already developed crosswalks aligning assessment items from these tools with the 3 outcome areas. Some items on an assessment tool might align to more than one child outcome. Likewise, not all items on an assessment tool will be closely related to any of the child outcome areas. A few of the assessment crosswalks available include the DACY2, the ABAS, the PLS5, and the DRDP. The ECTA Center website is listed on the resources slide at the end of most modules. In the top right corner of the slide, you can see that the instrument crosswalks are a selection under the Child Outcomes tab. Gathering information from conversations with families and involving them in the rating determinations is a required component of the ECHO process. Family members, which can include caregivers from outside of the household, are key sources of information because they know the child best. They have unique insights about the child across many everyday routines and in settings and situations that practitioners don't see them in, including home and the community. Programs must find ways to involve families in this process in meaningful ways to learn about the child's functioning and to participate in the ratings determination process. Information about the ECHO process should be discussed with parents when they first enter the program. DESE has created a one-page document titled Early Childhood Outcomes, a Guide for Families, that is available on the Early Childhood Special Education page of the DESE Office of Childhood website under the Quality Programs Preschool Programs section. This should be copied and shared with parents along with an explanation of the importance of their participation in this process and what that involves. This resource should be provided to parents and discussed with them prior to the time an entry or exit rating is going to be discussed. One suggestion would be to provide this resource and explain it at the eligibility determination meeting if the child is found eligible for special education services. Pay special attention to making sure parents are aware of the necessity of their involvement with determining these early childhood outcome ratings. Key components to be shared with families include the purpose and intent of collecting outcome data, which include program accountability, measuring child progress, and improving the practices, interventions, and services we deliver in our programs. We also want to share with families when and how the ratings are determined. We should share that ratings occur upon entry to and exit from the Early Childhood Special Education program. If your program is going to discuss outcome data during annual IEP meetings, let them know how to expect that as well. Share with them that ratings represent a snapshot of their child's current functioning and will be based on what their child is doing in his or her everyday activities, in multiple settings that include school, but also it will include home and the community. Let them know that this is where we will need their help as they know their child better than anyone and see him or her interacting in these settings all the time. Explain to parents the types of formal and informal assessment information that will be gathered during their child's time in the ECSE program, including the use of rating scales or observational checklists. This will be a snapshot of their child's ability to use a variety of skills to interact with people and things in their everyday world in ways that meet their needs. Involving parents in this process should be ongoing throughout the time they are in our early childhood special education programs. There are multiple ways we can and should be having parents share information with us. It could be through informal conversations held prior to IEP meetings. Those conversations might be done via structured interview format organized around the 3 outcomes, based on what you and your programs find to be helpful and important. Keep in mind that gathering this information should be individualized. Another approach to gathering information involves providing the parents with a checklist of functional activities organized around the 3 outcomes and asking them to share whether or not they have observed their child doing these things. Ideally, there would then be an opportunity to discuss with them the things they have observed. Remind parents that this information should be based on what they see their child doing in everyday situations at home or in the community, not under the most ideal sterile conditions. When it comes time to make actual ratings based on the 5-point scale, parents should be present for and participate in those discussions and not just provide information for someone else to make a rating. The Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center has a discussion prompt document that may be a helpful resource for involving parents in these discussions. The link to the document is listed on the resources slide of this presentation. Determining the achievement of outcomes would not be complete if we only looked at assessment results and family input. The measurement of whether or not a child has achieved an outcome must include observations from the professionals who work closely with the child. ECSE staff are accustomed to recording observational information on the children with whom they work. Those observations should occur across all settings and situations in the ECSE environment and on multiple ongoing occasions. Those observations are critical pieces of information for use in determining ratings on the 3 outcome areas. ECSE staff should be talking with and asking questions of others who work with the child concerning the 3 outcome areas. This would include related service providers, playground staff, any general education preschool staff who work with the child, as well as other child care providers or caregivers who are involved in activities with the child. It is common for children to display different levels of skill in different situations or settings. When gathering information from other staff who work with the child about their observations, focus on open-ended questions which require specific information to be shared rather than questions which can be answered with a yes or no. For example, how does the child interact with books or other objects in your setting? How does the child respond when you are not attending to him or her? When you're attending to other children, how does the child demonstrate turn-taking or sharing in your setting? These kinds of questions will provide much richer information than something like, does the child like books? Documentation of functioning that you or other professionals have observed should be dated and kept for reference. You can begin to synthesize key ideas from the documentation notes and reference specific examples in upcoming rating conversations that occur annually during IEP meetings or upon entry and exit from the program. Whenever possible, the professional sharing observations about a child should be included as a team member in ECHO rating discussions. When we put all these pieces together, it gives us the most complete, accurate, and comprehensive understanding of the child's functioning across the typical settings and situations that make up his or her day. Not one of these sources of information is more important than the other, and all should be included when making outcome ratings for children. Now that we've reviewed key background information about making early childhood outcome ratings, it's important to know when these ratings are required for all children who receive early childhood special education services. Again, the emphasis here is on the word all because any child eligible for early childhood special education who has the potential to be in the program for at least 6 months should receive an early childhood outcome rating in all 3 outcome areas within 30 days of receiving ECSE services. This includes the spectrum of students from those who only receive services for a speech sound system disorder all the way to those students who receive services for multiple delays. We give ratings to describe students in all 3 outcome areas regardless of the services they receive. We will address the data collection tool the state provides for documenting this information in Module 6. Children coming from our First Steps Early Intervention program in Missouri will receive an exit rating when they leave that program. The information that was used to make that rating should be considered by ECSE staff when making an entry rating into the ECSE program. But the ECSE entry rating and the First Steps exit rating could be different due to the different primary settings for the child. It is important to also stress that children who will not be in the program for at least 6 months should not be given an entry or an exit rating. Generally, this refers to those children who are identified for early childhood special education services less than 6 months before they are eligible to go to kindergarten. All other children identified for services have the potential to receive those services for at least 6 months and should be given an entry rating. Over the course of the time children are in our early childhood special education programs, we should be gathering information from those multiple sources we just reviewed for the time that we will be making an exit rating. Exit ratings are made within 30 days of the date the child will be leaving our early childhood special education program. And again, ratings are given in all three outcome areas. Children may be exiting our ECSE programs because they are eligible to attend kindergarten the next year or because they no longer require early childhood special education services. Currently, the only requirement is to hold conversations about early childhood outcomes and identify the rating near entry and again near exit from the early childhood special education program. However, given the overall goal to enable young children to be active and successful participants during the early childhood years and in the future in a variety of settings, many find it helpful to consider the child's functioning relative to age expectations when planning services at times in between entry and exit. We know that conversations about how children are demonstrating use of skills they already possess and the skills they are learning help us to determine the skills they will need to be ready to move into the K-12 world. We have a naturally occurring opportunity to do this through our annual IEP meetings. While conducting interim echo ratings would be termed a best practice, it is important to note again that ratings at annual IEP meetings are not a required component of the early childhood outcome rating process, and ratings given during those times would not be reported to DESE. This module has focused on the basics of early childhood outcomes process. As a wrap-up, let's do a quick reflection of what the process is and what it is not. The ECHO process involves the use of multiple sources of data, which are then discussed with a multidisciplinary team, which should involve the families or others who know this child well outside of the school environment. These are individualized decisions about children based on expectations that are age appropriate. We will discuss this more in a future module. The process of making these ratings is required for all students receiving ECSE services, from those with mild needs to those with the most significant needs. If they have an IEP and will receive services anywhere in the state of Missouri for at least 6 months, then entry and exit ratings are required. This process is not using a single instrument or data source to determine a rating, and it is not done or made by one person based on their opinion. It is not based on the child's acquisition of small discrete skills, nor is it based on the type or amount of services the child has received. These ratings are not made based on our observations of children under ideal circumstances where all opportunities for success have been artificially set up. They are made based on the child's ability to perform activities in typical situations and in typical settings. Based on the information provided in this module, answer these reflection questions with a partner, a small group, or if you're viewing this individually, take some notes on your thoughts. Why is it important to include information from all three sources in the ECHO process? Are you including information from all three of these sources in your current ECHO rating process? If not, take a few minutes to jot down some ways you could start to do this. The resources listed on this slide were used in preparation of this module.